RPF, shorthand for real-person fiction, is the act of creating works of fiction using the likeness of real individuals to populate the story. This use of likeness can be as shallow as taking their name and appearance, or can delve as deep as their personal history and interpersonal relationships. The typical subject of RPF is people of high social status, sports stars, political figures, and other celebrities. There may be overlap in these subcommunities of RPF, but just as often, a person who likes RPF of musicians may have no interest in RPF about actors. Even these subcommunities can be broken down further by the genre of music a band plays, or the type of sport someone plays. Some only care about one band in particular, or one team of athletes. Although individuals of fame have always been the main subject of RPF, with the advent of the internet and the rise of social media influencers, more and more people are finding themselves with enough of a following to be considered a sort of micro-celebrity in and of themselves. While social media influencers are still a relatively new category in the long history of RPF, they display the same variety of subcommunities that more traditional RPF has. A person that follows beauty gurus may have no interest in video essayists. The followers of video essayists may have no interest in Let's Players, their followers may have no interest in generalist vloggers, and so on. Minecraft YouTube, MCYT, fandom's place in the dichotomy of real-person fiction and media-based fictional person fiction, FPF, is a known point of contention within the community. A vast majority of the fic written by MCYT fandom take place in-game, that is to say, a place that doesn't exist in real life. They contain elements of the fantastic. They are informed by the game environment, referencing the blocky nature of Minecraft's graphics or the game mechanics of how the player interacts with the world, chopping trees down one block at a time, or placing dirt down in perfect cube shapes from an unseen inventory. The characters often exhibit non-human traits extrapolated from their in-game avatar, colloquially known as a cubito. A player whose cubito appears to be based on an animal may be depicted as an anthropomorphized version of that animal, for example. Narratives rarely allude to any real-life occurrences in a player's life, instead pulling from in-game events to create a timeline and story. The world created within the game is one that MCYT fans are interested in, more often than that of the lives of the streamers playing their favorite characters. On the other hand, these characters are composed of the pieces of the real person playing them. Unless an SMP is working from a script or is otherwise themed, then a majority of the interactions that take place can be assumed to be the genuine behavior of the player. Frequently, pieces of characterization are informed by a player's real life, referring to someone's nationality, for instance, depicting good times with scars disabled, or even, in some cases, giving a character physical attributes similar to the player which are not apparent on their in-game skin, such as Bacon Waffles Zero's curly hair. Most fans disagree with categorizing MCYT as RPF, so much so that in early 2022, the AO3 changed the fandom's tags, removing references to RPF in most instances of fandom, relationship, and character tags. However, the line between RPF and FPF in MCYT fandom is blurry. Remediation, explains Assistant Professor Kaylee Thomas, is a process of globally creating a common narrative from unrelated real-world events for the purpose of forging a canon or fanon understanding of real people as characters. In the context of traditional RPF, this refers to a celebrity's body of work, films, stage performances, concerts, their public appearances, red carpet events and award shows, and any other material fans can conceivably obtain, interviews, paparazzi photos, social media posts, etc., to create a picture of the person, because it cannot draw from the parts of the celebrity's life that aren't shared with the public. The celebrity then represents an archetype, and often characterization within the fandom will discard what doesn't support their stereotypical understanding of the celebrity's character. In Vieira's essay, Real Persona Fiction, she points out typical boy band roles, the funny one, the sensitive one, the chill one, etc., and how One Direction members Zayn Malik and Louis Tomlinson textually did not fill the archetypes they represented, both in official publicity and in fandom. When we apply this concept to MCYT, we may start with the current running season of a particular survival multiplayer, SMP, server for our character. Then we might look to past seasons of the same SMP to inform our character's history and personality. Exuma Void's shy, awkward narration style in the first season of Hermitcraft may be represented as a period of his life where he was socially anxious or depressed. Next, we reach to other SMPs, or Minecraft events the player has been a part of. It is, for example, near ubiquitous for Evolution SMP's watchers to be considered as part of Grian's backstory, even on unrelated SMPs such as Hermitcraft or the Life series. After this, we start to grab from non-Minecraft videos, streams, and social media posts. Then we take inspiration from the parts of a player's real life that they choose to share with us. But in spite of all this, we can never know who these individuals are as more than the archetypical role we want them to fill. No one has ever written a hermit in a way that is remotely accurate to my experience with them. And at that point, you're not really writing about us anyway, says Zombie Cleo.
One LiveJournal user by the name of Ithiliana refers to this concept as triangulation, or taking inspiration from multiple sources, including information about the actors, elements of their roles/characters. Also, many fics show the writer's own experiences and knowledge about some element of the story. Another refers to what they call the bleed-over effect, or the act of giving a character in one canon traits of a character played by the same actor in another canon. An offhanded comment about Jimmy Solidarity Gaming being akin to a canary in a coal mine in one miniseries has become a near ubiquitous aspect of his character across all SMPs he appears in, with fans depicting his Cubito as having canary yellow wings, despite this element not appearing on his actual avatar's skin. In the film and theater mediums, this might be referred to as typecasting, or the phenomenon in which an actor becomes associated with a particular role or archetype. A canonical example of typecasting is Clown Pierce's role in various scripted series. He is cast as a sinister and villainous character in Parkour Civilization and Caboodle SMP, functioning as a sort of final boss for the series' protagonists to overcome, highlighting his strength and skill as an adversary. In the PvP Civilization series, he fulfills a similarly sinister and mysterious role, as well as that as a competent player-v-player, PvP, combatant. Prior to these roles, Clown was most well known for his PvP prowess and antagonistic tendencies on the Lifesteal SMP. Despite the former roles being fictionalized and scripted, they are based on that reputation of Clown's, and the kind of role viewers expect to see him in. Even outside of these series, players make occasional references to Clown's roles in them on other servers, essentially canonizing them across multiple SMPs. In RPF, the idea of typecasting might also be considered what Almost Never calls casting fiction, or an understanding of RPF as casting an actor, musician, or other celebrity personality into a role in one's fantasies by using aspects of the canon created through remediation. All of these ideas should not be unfamiliar to the average MCYT fan. I tend to feel that I am writing about persona rather than people themselves, says Shrew. I understand that there is a difference between what someone presents to others/to the public and what they actually are like. One of the more common schools of thought in the MCYT community is that the author is writing about personas rather than the streamer playing the game. A multitude of variation of the persona not person slogan have been canonized and sinned as tags on AO3. And yet the above quotation is not about MCYT. It is about One Direction. The fourth wall is a concept in stage performance that assumes there is an invisible wall separating the actors from the audience, which the audience may see through and the actors may not. In the context of fandom, the fourth wall refers to the divide between the fandom and canon, or the fandom and the subjects of their fanworks. In this case, it might be understood as the persona which separates a person from their fandom. I do not want to get to know the members of One Direction just as much as I do not want to get to know my new neighbor. I believe in the fourth wall, strictly, and I write about them not to get closer to these people, but because they are attractive and entertaining and are fun to write about. To write about them, I need a certain amount of distance. The Arrow, 2013. Fans access the remediated canon of their subjects through the persona, but this does not give them access to the private details of the personal lives of the actors or streamers who play them. In the traditional model of RPF, from the starting point of the person, the actor, musician, or other celebrity personality, they create their public-facing persona in the way they behave on camera and the information about themselves that they choose to share. From here, a fandom is formed around that persona, and from that fandom comes the fanworks, the art, the writing, the alternate universes. In this model, the persona is the only fourth wall that separates the fandom from the subject. The roles played by an actor may supplement the canon, but they are not necessarily integral to the understanding of the persona. In MCYT, the content that streamers create and publish is the medium through which we understand their persona. The information we learn about them is conveyed to us in video or streamed format, as narration to the viewer or a casual chat with friends, all while they are playing the game. They direct their camera to another's cubito as they discuss events in the game, with the same gravity they give the stories about their lives outside of it. Though the persona exists outside of the context of the game, what we experience of it is inextricably linked with it. Minecraft is, therefore, a second layer standing between the audience and the actor. It is, in itself, a sort of alternate universe, the default setting that the fandom uses for its fanworks, rather than the real world of traditional RPF. However, is the streamer's hand in the creation of that alternate universe enough to truly set MCYT apart from traditional RPF? While this murky uncertainty may seem trivial, the distinction between RPF and FPF forms a cornerstone of one of the most hotly debated topics in the community. The medium of streaming and accessibility of the streamers are relatively new concepts in the decades-long history of fandom, and as such, the discussion around acceptable behavior and etiquette is still in its infancy. But the conversations being had are not new ones. These grounds have been well tread before we arrived here, by the Trekkies and Directioners and J-Squared, Star Trek fans, One Direction fans, and shippers of Jensen Ackles and Jared Padalecki. When we deny MCYT's connection to RPF, what we are denying ourselves of is not only the wisdom of the people who came before us and paved the way, but the contributions and insights of whole portions of our own community. We deny ourselves the blueprints to build our community from. We erase the progress of our foremothers in fandom and invite regressive ideas to fester and divide us. MCYT is not wholly separate from RPF, and this is not a bad thing.